Continues here in the sim grid. A whole host of new circuits released for Assetto Corsa Competizione have unlocked our chance to race on some of the best racetracks in Great Britain. This time it's the turn of Oulton Park. This Cheshire-based circuit has been a staple of the British racing scene since the 1950s. Iconic for its narrow circuit, high average speed and tricky full commitment corners. 60 minutes of racing ahead of us with a pit stop to boot as well. It's time for the sim grid's GT4s at Oulton Park event. I'm McGlade, and alongside me is Alex Goldschmidt, and what a race we have in prospect.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Lewis. Good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Little Budworth in Cheshire, just 13 miles outside of Chester city centre. We have a 60-minute contretemps here in the Cheshire countryside. We do have a mandatory pit stop. It is only 6 minutes. So basically, when we get to within 27 minutes of the timer counting down, the pit stop window will open, and then we'll close just 6 minutes later. And what's more, Lewis, we have a whole host of GT4 machinery: McLaren, Aston Martin, BMW, Chevrolet, Porsche, Alpine, amongst others, and of course the plucky good old Ginetta G55.
Yeah, what a grid it's going to look at running down the hill. It's going to be a fantastic race, I am sure. We've got qualifying as well to settle before it. But around this circuit, one that is incredibly difficult to overtake at courtesy of that hybrid speed and narrow circuit, I think we're going to see track position be so very crucial. So they need to nail that 20-minute qualifying session.
Very much the case. I mean, when you're going through corners such as Old Hall, Cascades, you've then got the run through Lakeside up into Island Bend and then up to the very tight hairpin at Shell, right at the top part of the circuit. We're running on the international variation, unlike the British Touring Car Championship, which would normally frequent the island circuits. We're running on the full 2.692 mile, 4.307 kilometre circuit, and it's going to be a true test. There's going to be plenty of overtaking opportunities going through from Britain's down to Hislop, but then the really tight corners such as Britain's, it's a very, very tight chicane. It's going to be really, really good. And you know, to be honest with you, there's so much great competition here on the sim grid, and tonight's grid is no exception here, Lewis.
Absolutely not. It was incredibly competitive just a week ago when we did our 90-minute race at Snetterton in what was very, very tricky conditions. I'm not sure what the weather forecast is for this evening. I don't think it's actually quite that bad, so we should be all right. Blue skies, we are being told, just nice and chilly. The circuit though features some fantastic corners. At least driving amongst yourself when you go through Old Hall Corner, when you come through Druid, they are fantastic corners for racing. I once did a race around here only a few weeks ago where we did Knickerbrook at the back end of the circuit without the chicane prior to it, which is terrifying. Do not recommend. The chicane slowing the speed down quite nicely actually to make it less of a terrifying experience. With that pit stop though, it does just allow you to maybe jump a couple of drivers. We're only expecting them to take a 1 litre in that stop. You have to take a little bit of fuel in the pit stop, but we're only expecting to take just a little bit to just fulfill that requirement rather than strategize their way up the grid. So it's about the time you take that pit stop and nailing the laps either side of it.
Yeah, consistency is going to be a true key point here this evening. And yeah, if they do a bit of a splash and dash, you know, they might have decided, okay, well, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have this opportunity of maybe I could undercut somebody. If I just stick a litre or 2 litres, that's going to put them in the pit box for what, less than 5 seconds. They can be on their way. But as long as they don't break the speed limit in the pit lane, because we've seen it before on the sim grid, that under pressure, people can make mistakes.
It's not an easy pit entry. You can see it there on the right-hand side of your shot there. You come up and over the hill, and you go to the right-hand side, and you've got like it doesn't seem that bad. It really doesn't. But there is a tight left-hander just as you come in to hook round the wall, and the line isn't there immediately. It's quite far after in actuality. But, well, we'll have to see how the race unfolds. Before we do so, let's take a look at the hot lap of the circuit.
2.692 miles, that's the distance here at Oulton Park International as we go on board the Ginetta G55 GT4 of Alaric Enslin. Now into the right-hander at Old Hall, down into third gear at 130 kph before making our way through the Avenue, down through Denton's before the left-hand sweeper at Cascades, which is taken at around about third gear at about 140 kilometres an hour. You can see that Alaric Enslin lets the car drift that wide to get the maximum momentum carry going through Lakeside and into the left-hand sweeper at Island Bend before the run up to the heavy braking zone for Shell Oil's corner. Tight apex taken there at a 5th gear at 178 kilometers an hour. Down the gearbox into second, tight apex here through Shell Oils, and notice the amount of camber. You've got to really nail that apex coming through the corner. Now we're making our way to the chicane at Britain's, down from 4th to 2nd gear, around about 100 or so kph taken through this particular complex before the run down to Hislops via Hilltop. Once again, Alaric Enslin continues to pick up the pace, then put on the brakes, down into 2nd gear through Hislops, then into the right-hander here at Knickerbrook, which is taking it 2nd gear at 100 kph. And then we've just got a few more corners to negotiate. Up Clay Hill into Water Tower before the right-hander at Druids. Down from 5th into 4th gear at about 140 kph through Druids. And then just 2 more corners remain. The short run up to Lodge Corner, the right-hander, which then takes us into Dearly. Down from 5th gear at 200 kph to 2nd gear at just over 85 through Dearly. And that's the hot lap here at Oulton Park International.
A look at the circuit, and here we are already in qualifying, and we can see the drivers throwing the cars around Oulton Park. Already qualifying underway. Niels van der Koekout, will be told, is on pole position at the moment after setting a great opening time, 1:42.0 for him. And the thing is, with setting a good time early in the session, it's going to be busy on track, and yes, we may not have a 60 car grid or so, you know, it's at least a little bit that you can find your own little space on track, but nailing that lap early is going to be so important to at least allow yourself to breathe in the latter parts of the session.
Also, it just it means that you're going to have that great opportunity, because we know very much the case here at Oulton Park that in certain parts of the circuit it is going to be rather tight, especially when you're going through the likes of Cascade. You're going through into Shell right up at the top part of the circuit, and that's where the key point is. And Niels van der Koekout in the number 47 has already started to fire that warning shot across the bow for everybody, but there's quite a few respective names that people will know from the sim grid. Obviously, the man that was the machine at the inaugural Super Sunday event last month, Marcel Fusi, is with us in the number 94. Also, the surname that was my nemesis, Igor Ogorodnikov, in the number 41, is back with us. He's running the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. So coming into this, we have a total of multiple splits once again, 5 of them in total, with a maximum capacity tonight of 160 drivers. Obviously, myself and Lewis, we are covering split 1 here. You can follow us on the relevant social medias, sim_grid on Twitter. You can also find... And you know what we were just saying about quick lap times. Niels van der Koekout has just done a 1:41.7 flat, Lewis. He's just absolutely nailed that one by, what was it, 0.3 of a second. And with the track temperature showing as fast, when it gets to optimum, this track evolution is really going to put the cat amongst the pigeons tonight.
Indeed. Wow, that is a very colourful car for Shermatinsky in the Camaro. I don't know if I am a fan of that one, but we'll not miss him on the grid. Currently qualified in 5th position. Massive lap time from van der Koekout, but it is beaten though by Felix by just around about 1/10 of a second, a 41.580. Camaro's heading to the front. That's a fantastic lap time. Still though, plenty of time left in this session. You're saying about the track evolution, about things getting better, about, to be honest, making sure that you are in clean air. I suspect that whilst this grid is separated by quite a large amount at the moment, 23 cars there on your screen on the left-hand side by just over 2 seconds, that will come down quite quickly. The GT3s at Snetterton, I think most of the grid was separated by around about a second. It was ridiculously competitive. And for a lot of these drivers, this is a circuit that they've not really seen too much.
No, because for those that may have already been aware, on February the 10th, just literally, what was it, 8 days ago? I said 505 Games in Competizione dropped this all on us. It's been longly anticipated here on SimGrid to have Oulton Park, Snetterton 300 and Donington Park. Of course, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline over the coming weeks and months here at SimGrid, and there's already been a few comments on the YouTube chat for what I would like to call Ivan Shermatinsky's very much radioactive Chevrolet Camaro that's currently rounding out the top 6 at the moment, Lewis.
It's, I mean, like, so it's grim. I'm going to say that. I love a good grim livery, though, but it is like, whew, like it is eye-piercing. So I respect the bravery of Shermatinsky for taking that car around the circuit. But the thing is, in the race, it's actually a really smart call because no one's going to miss you if you dive down the inside. So, you know, it might be a big double thumbs up for Shermatinsky, but he's got to make that one work. We are keeping our eye on Szymanski, and there is Shermatinsky. Oh, invalid lap. We were told it was going to be very good, though. Disappointment, realistically. Only P6 still.
Yeah, we're now with Ryan Whitlock, one of the drivers with a whole heap of experience. We've got the likes of Ogorodnikov, who has competed in over 12 or 13 races. Niels van der Kerkelt in the number 47. He's raced, this is now his 33rd race here at the SimGrid. Alexander Doricott from Great Britain, Owen Wenlock also from the Brits as well. Oh, now there's a familiar name. David Christie, and look, the bromance is well and truly just started. Now, for those wondering, the first ever Super Saturday, sorry, my apologies there, I got a bit too excited there, Lewis. On the first Super Saturday, Michael Hamlet drove in the Super Trofeo race. Well, for those wondering what's going to happen this Saturday as we head to Donington Park, we're going to have Ginettas, Super Trofeos, the Porsche Cup, and then the 2.4-hour endurance. I can confirm that David Christie will be competing in the Porsche Cup, and Michael Hamlet from the SimGrid will be competing in the Super Trofeo. So David is showing the definite admiration for the man that whispers sweet nothings into our ears, Mr. Michael Hamlet from the SimGrid, of course.
Yeah, so a great team name and a nice thing for him. He does need to represent, though. That's like extra pressure with him being on the grid. Do you not think? Like, I would feel that if I'm on the grid, I have to represent doubly so than normal because, you know, you've really got to, haven't you? Especially if you're going to roll with a team name like that.
Yeah, very, very true. I need to screenshot that at one point when I have a look back through the stream a little bit later on tonight. But yeah, Retina Scar Camaro has been thrown in the general direction of the 81 of Ivan Shermatinsky, one of the many Russians in this field. There's Misha Poshopyan from Full Boost Racing in the number 444, a regular again, one of the Polish drivers. Some relevant people as well. Nick Balzer, if anyone might remember that defensive display he did at the multi-class at Spa a few weeks ago. And also the Nürburgring. He's definitely one that we're going to have quite a few drivers really putting themselves up front as Poshopyan goes up into P16, just over 1.1 seconds. But Lewis, top 24 separated by 1.8, and with 9.5 minutes left in quali.
Yeah, I reckon we're actually going to see that close up. I can't remember exactly how many it was, but I'm pretty sure it was in its 20s of drivers within a second at Snetterton, which is a longer lap. Although I would say, yes, there are some harder corners. I think overall, Oulton Park is a harder track because there's a lot to think about around here. It's such a narrow, it's such an unforgiving circuit. A little bit of a shout out as well, because I know the fan base will be running wild. There's Kilian Ryan Meenan, who had a really good drive up the grid in that GT3 race, but the Yiga Rogoroknikov fans that we know we've got here in the SimGrid in their thousands by the seams of it, is only down in 25th place. He qualified in the front row of the grid in the GT3s at Snetterton, and ended up finishing on the podium. Here, his pace not looking so strong. It's a wildly different venue, of course, Oulton Park to Snetterton, hoping he can move his way up the grid for that fan base. But I wonder if it applies a little bit too much pressure to his shoulders, and you know, he's starting to wilt under such. Probably not.
Well, considering the frequency of events that we actually have at the moment, it looks like, Radoslav Makusz from Poland has actually jumped up from 10th to 4th position in, of all cars, the BMW M4 GT4. Nice bespoke black and red livery there as he's making his way through Cascades. Marcel Fusi rounds out the top 3, and then we come on board with Ogorodnikov in the number 41. He's currently just over 0.3 quicker than David Christie in qualifying, but you can just see here, Lewis, as we're riding on board with the Porsche, he's now going down the far part of the circuit towards the last couple of corners, and that'll be Lodge, and then into Dearly. Ogrodnikov's got a hell of a lot of a mountain to climb right now.
He really does, and the thing is, it's such a tricky circuit. That run into Lodge Corner it's so easy to catch a tyre coming through there on the brakes, and so really needs to make sure that he nails one of these last few laps. 7 minutes and 30 seconds left, so really not very long. I believe the top 6 on the grid are different manufacturers, so that is fantastic to see as we focus on Sean Moriarty for PPR Esports, who's just come through Knickerbrook and running up through Clay Hill towards Druids Corner. Druids Corner, a fantastic corner, going through this double right-hander, looking like he's improving, although that line through Druids did not look particularly speedy. Welcome to be proven wrong on that one, but we are hearing that he's lost a little bit of time. Realistically, the final corner for him, Lodge Corner, and then the run up through Deer Leap, and you want to hold it as far to the left-hand side of the possible, as far as possible. Currently in 15th place, moves up into 7th. That's a decent lap time late in the session, but definitely needs to do a little bit more if he wants to challenge for pole position. If he'd have found that extra 0.003 of a second, though, would have been an extra position.
Yeah, I understand he lost about 2 tenths or so, so that could have actually put him up roundabout sort of into the top 3 thereof, so would have been ahead of Radoslav Merkush in the 137. But yeah, Andre Felix representing Chevrolet, Niels van der Kerkhout and the trusty Alpine A110 SGT4, a car that's very, very good in the twisty stuff. It's got a 1.8 litre inline-4 turbocharged engine. Not as much grunt as some of the other cars that we've got on the grid, like the Chevrolet and also the Mercedes. But here at Oulton Park, it's really showing its stripes right now.
You don't need so much grunt around here. You know, you need a car that's balanced really, really well, because it's a track with a lot of commitment. I spoke to Dennis Lind not too far after he raced here in British GT, and he was saying that corners like this, for example, the run down towards the Island Bend, the run down towards the Shell oil hairpin, it's a track which just it invites fear, because it's such high commitment, and the only way that you can go around the corner faster is by just believing the car will grip. Now, if you're in a car, it may have a lot of power, but if you don't have the belief that it's going to grip through the corner, then you'll never send it at that speed. Which obviously, it sounds very obvious, but it is true regardless. Raab moves up into 11th place. So for me, I would want to be in something like an Alpine or something in that sort of variety that takes a corner really, really nicely, as Merkush moves up into 3rd place. So further improvements for him. I think it's Lima as well, who's moved up to 4th in all of this as well. 5 minutes to go.
Yeah, so Thiago Lima from Portugal in the 101 Porsche, now just over 4 tenths off. Alexander Dorocott from Great Britain in the 570 SGT4. There's Ogrodnikov. He's 1.89 seconds off of Merkush's pole position time with just over 4.5 minutes to go. He's now making his way through Druids and then under the bridge towards Lodge. We'll have to see if this is a better lap time from the number 41. So he'll now come through, try and take a tight line, run it wide, as you were saying earlier on, Lewis, going through into Deer Leap. And so Ogrodnikov now making his way through. Does he improve? Will he get out of the bottom part of the grid? Well, he stays P25. The last lap was 1 minute 43.005, but just judging by that, I think that must have been a lap that was determined to be illegal, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think that was so on, which is a shame. I mean, to be fair, even if it was a 43.0, it's not the speed that we were necessarily expecting from Igor Ogrodnikov. So maybe he's just waiting for the last moments. Our focus on Alexander Raab, who's in 12th position, saw him improve up to 11th, see if he can improve for a second consecutive lap. Not very long left on the board, so any drivers coming out of pit lane, like I just saw Felix did there, from the top end of the field, any drivers starting their laps now will realistically be starting their final few laps of the session. Raab doesn't improve, stays 12th position. Owen Wenlock now coming around the final corner in the McLaren. Is there going to be any improvement from here? He's a couple of tenths up on himself. Side Max Motorworks across the line, 12th it is. So only a few tenths improvement, but does set the exact same time as Handler, so that's not bad.
No, not bad at all. We're on board with the number 96, Marcin Wyszynski in the Mercedes. Now he's He's a couple of tenths up. He's just actually made his way into Britain's, which is a very, very demanding chicane. You've got to get it absolutely spot on turning in, hitting the braking zone, hitting the apex, and then running the car out, going down into Hislops. Now we're going to go into the right-hander. You've got to really nail the apex on both parts of this, going through into the right-hander at Knickerbrook, and you can just see how committed the number 96 from Poland is. Now he's got the run up to Clay Hill. Ogorodnikov now comes across towards the line. Will this lap not be invalidated? Goes P19 on that effort, or 1 minute 42.735. And I've just had a look down the order of things, and Coleman Ryan Meenan rounding out the top 23 with the exact same time as Marija. Wyszynski is now up by 2 tenths, so he could actually put himself into the top 7 as he now comes through dearly. Will he get towards the sharper end of the grid? We're about to find out. P4, 1 minute 41.976, and that's a really, really good job there.
That was madness. Very, very nice from Wyszynski to move up into the top 5 and potentially even challenge for something higher if his second lap can be decent as well. Shermatinsky, we are currently looking at, and it's very hard not to, is a little bit up on his time at the moment. Just coming through Druid's corner now and still improving in the number 81, looking to challenge a little bit further up the grid. He may move up into sort of like the top 4, get onto the second row of the grid. Yeah, I think he's got a little bit to improve to get himself up onto the front row of the grid, but nevertheless, let's keep our focus on him. 11th position at the moment, coming towards the line here at Oulton Park, moves up into 3rd. Bravo, a 41.757. Nice lap times, big lap times, Alex, coming here at the final parts of the qualifying session.
Yeah, I was hearing that Sebastian Handler, who was actually pole position for GT4 at the German Cup that myself and David Christie were on just a few weeks ago, with Alexander Harbin, the number 150. He's currently P15. Top 15 currently separated by just under 8 tenths of a second. He's now making his way into Hislops and then into Knickerbrook, taking an absolute wallop of curb. And it looks like someone's taken the marker post down in this qualifying session. Well, not just through Hislops, but also through Knickerbrook. And it looks like Wyszynski now going on the charge for pole position. A little bit unsettled, very close indeed, but Wyszynski goes P3, top 4. Would you believe it? Covered by 0.177 seconds, and we're down to the last 10 seconds in qualifying. There's Nick Babin. One of the other Russians in this. He's also been front and centre in GT4 here on SimGrid. He's languishing all the way down in 18th position in the 707 Porsche as the checkered is out for qualifying. But Lewis, more importantly, he's 2 tenths up as he now exits through Dilly. Now 3 tenths. This is going to really put him up towards the top part of the top 15. Well, it puts him P12 on the flag. Missed out on a top 10 position there as we go to Eastfield in the 585 Mercedes.
Yeah, big improvements at the latter part of this session. Of course, improving by a tenth or two will move you up a couple of positions. If you improve by 3, 4, 5 tenths, it can move you up to the front end of the field and completely change your evening. That is exactly what we're seeing here from Yves Velders, coming towards the line in 19th position at the moment, but 3 tenths up on the time, goes to 14th, gets inside the top 15 and demotes rather position. So there's some further improvements coming as we focus on the number 50 coming through the final corner. Balzar up a little bit on himself, could get inside the top 10 with this. Number 13th at the moment, only to 12th. That is a shame. Felix, the only one in the top 5, or top 4 rather, or is top 5, that's on a lap or that could even do anything. So with that, I think it is then pole position for Andre Felix. Fantastic lap time, and was set roughly halfway into the session from memory and was just unchallenged for that time.
Yeah, Andre Felix really put the warning shot across the bow for the Netherlands' very own Niels van der Kerkelt. So it is Chevrolet versus Alpine on the front row of the grid. Wyszynski doing a fantastic job in putting a Porsche, and then it was Shermatinsky in the radioactive Camaro. We're going to have to nickname that now. I think if you put that on Google Maps and you put the satellite down there, Lewis, you'd be able to see it from a country mile away.
It is bright, it must be said. As you can tell, they're here in the cool conditions of Oulton Park, the grid ahead of you, and you can see how tight it is and why we're sort of balanced on the precipice of what could be a fantastic race. Felix from Van der Kook out on the front row of the grid. Wyszynski and Shermatinsky on row 2. Fuzi and Makush, Lima, Szymanski, Moriarty and Doricott are the top 10. And if that's the top 10, Alex, at the end of the race, I will buy a hat and eat it, because that is not the form book that we have here in the Sim Grid with all of the events that we've had and all the events coming up. That's not how it stays. It always changes, and you need to be on your toes around here because there's fantastic racing everywhere you look.
Definitely, with the tight, technical and fast-flowing circuit here at Oulton Park, we won't expect anything less. It doesn't, we could, okay, yeah, Ogrodnikov's going to be way down the order. He's effectively 22nd in qualification, but we know the pedigree of some of these drivers. Killian and Corman Ryan Meenan, for instance, Marcel Fuzi, Ivan Shermatinsky, Niels van der Kook. There's so many good drivers in this field. And it takes one particular throw of the dice, or maybe an additional bit of DLC, let's say, that can throw things a bit of a curveball from the picture. However, to finish first you've got to finish, and this is not going to be easy here at Oulton Park tonight.
No, it is a circuit which bites, that is for sure, and it's a 60-minute race. We've got a pit stop in there at the middle 6 minutes of the race, so between 33 minutes to go and 27 minutes to go is the pit window. They must pit in that time. They must take a litre of fuel or more, and so that could also throw things into the mix. But of course, there is plenty of other racing as well coming up in the Sim Grid. Don't forget to tune in on Saturday. We've got Super Saturday back again. Super Trofeo, we've got the Ginetta Cup, Porsche Cup, and of course a 2.4 hour GT race. That is all at Donington from memory, and I think that is going to be a fantastic one. Love a good build up to an event. You've got your support races. It really convinces you that you're sort of part of this sport.
Yeah, and also the fact that we're expanding our commentary team as well, because Jessica Bell will make her debut this coming Saturday alongside David Christie for both the Ginetta and the Super Trofeo races, where Lewis and myself will be there for the Porsches and also for the 2.4 hour endurance. Also on the schedule coming up, the British Classics, Donington Park, 25th of February. Then we've got the 12-hour next-gen Silverstone Brain Tumour charity race, where we have got oversubscribed teams. One of the good things about that is GT3 and GT4 multi-class, but also the £500 target that was initially set has been exceeded. It's now 130% plus of targets so far. Jenson Button on the grid, James Baldwin, Michael O'Brien, Tobin Lee, a few names that you might remember, a whole host of drivers from the Sim Grid. It is going to be a fantastic, it is flat out for 12 hours at the home of British Motorsport. Also, we made some relevant news quite recently. Sprint Cup Season 3 returns on the 11th of March. It's a 6-round calendar. And you can see Snetterton, Misano, Imola, Hungaroring, Zolder and Suzuka. We have 6 races, 90-minute race of affairs. Also, Ballast, and myself and David Christie will be on the commentary team for that one. We've also got the Best of British starting on the 13th of March. And you can see that the first 3 weeks will be running concurrently, so the 13th, the 20th and the 27th of March, and then it'll be a 2-week gap between the 2 last rounds of it, Brands Hatch and Snetterton, with Oulton Park, Donington and Silverstone. Head to thesimgrid.com to register when the banks open here, and as you can see on the website, you can also go to pits.thesimgrid.com for all the relevant news. There's been some new news just come out today about the SimGrid times VCO World Cup, which starts a little bit later on in April. A 5-round calendar. We have, as always, one of the most fantastic talks about races, which you and I both love, Lewis, the 24 Hours of Spa, which takes place in the middle of May.
Yeah, there's fantastic content coming up in the Sim Grid, and of course we must thank Coach Dave Academy and Thrustmaster for helping us along, and of course VCO for the World Cup as well. I am super excited for the future of the sim grids on Assetto Corsa Competizione, because there's so many races coming up, and this is only what's announced in effectively the near future. What will happen towards the end of the year? Well, you'll have to get yourself on all the social medias and get following to find out. The grid, though, on what looks to be a beautiful day. I wish it was that nice here in Salisbury today. It was not. It was quite miserable, to be honest, as you would suspect, being Britain. But that looks absolutely lovely, if a bit cold.
Yeah, talking about the cold here, Lewis, 13 degrees track temperature. Obviously, with the time model here on the Assetto Corsa Competizione, the drivers will have it's going to be a couple of laps before, when they go green, you know, they're going to warm things up on the formation lap. It's going to take about 3 to 5 laps, I think, with the cold conditions to really get the tyres and the brakes up to temperature. And that's where we're really going to start to see the race unfold. But we know for a fact that everyone's going to go... We know it's a 60-minute race, it's a mandatory pit stop, but you can't win a race on turn 1. You can make sure you keep your nose clean through turn 1, and hopefully you survive any sort of melee in the middle. But if you're at the sharp end of the grid, like Felix, Van der Kerkelt, Wyszynski, Shermatinsky, maybe even punctures could be an issue here as well.
I think for some of the drivers a little bit further down the grid, that yes, of course, you need to keep yourself very careful over the opening couple of laps. But for those drivers that are a little bit further down, taking the right amount of risk, so not risking too much, but then also not playing it too safe, could be very, very crucial in the early parts of the race. Because the thing is this will be effectively the easiest part of the race to work your way up on those cold tyres, where doors will be left open, where people will be struggling for grip. And also remember that the early parts of the race, effectively, the more aggressive you are, so the faster you work your way up the grid, it's almost as if at least for a couple laps, the easier it will be, because you're being more aggressive, you're warming up your tyres more, meaning that you can work your way up more. That does come to an end very abruptly, but still, you want to make those moves early.
Yeah, very true. But if you are overcommitted, let's say, if you go for a gap that doesn't really exist and you whack the curves and that gives you a puncture, well,
they're done.
It's game over. You know, you're going to serve 30 seconds in the pits having the tyres changed, and that's not what you want. So the drivers now really have to sort of like look at it. Looks like Sebastian Handler has got an issue. The number 11 that actually qualified in P11. It's going to be I'm not too sure. I think Handler will be starting straight at the back of the field. We will have 26 cars competing. And that's a pit lane start for Handler when he started pole position for the German Cup and didn't have a great run, let's be completely honest, especially when it was night time at the start as well. And don't ask Igor Ogorodnikov what happened that evening at all. I remember that clearly. Don't ask him. He won't like you reminding him. But Wyszynski's got a good opportunity here. We know that Ogorodnikov has got the pace. He normally uses Mercedes when it comes to GT3. He's stuck with the rear-engined, rear-wheel drive, boxer-driven Porsche. And the Porsche here is also going to have that nice bit of agility, especially when it comes to powering out of the corners, Lewis, because when you've got the engine on the back end, you've got really good traction. Yeah,
it's a nimble car, and I think if there was a car that you wanted to move up the order and you do want something which does move around fairly freely on the circuit, we're currently on board on the main screen here with Wyszynski, who's starting from third position. You can see the Alpine ahead of him. You can also see the Camaro ahead of him of Andre Felix. If you're starting at the front, though, if you don't have to worry about, trying to work your way up the order, you want a car with quite a bit of grunt, because defending on the straight is obviously a bit easier if you're powering away. Not too long before we get the 60-minute race underway. You can see as well the markers next to each driver's name where it says 1. Obviously, we're waiting for that pit stop in the middle portion of the race. Prior to that, though, we've got plenty of racing to go. Alex, got to do it. Who's your money on for this race?
It's difficult. I'm going to give you a top 3 here. I think Felix and Shermatinsky, Van der Kerkelt for agility. Wyszynski could actually be a bit of a dark horse, but I'm going to go with Marcel Fusi starting in P5 in the Aston Martin.
I'm going to go with Shermatinsky just because of the radioactive car. I think that will make carving through the field much easier at any point, just because you're very visible.
very true.
Oh, look at it.
Oh my goodness, I've got to avert my eyes for a second. My godfathers. A big thank you as always to our broadcast director Mike Yao for the fantastic images that we see time in, time out here on the sim grid.
Here we go then. Felix coming through the final corner to get the race underway in a Camaro with Van der Koekout alongside. Excellent strategy from him about a week ago as well to get himself onto the podium in the 90 minutes of Snetterton. Ahead today though, it's 60 minutes of Oulton Park, and who is going to be getting underway in the best way? That run into Old Hall Corner, a classic British staple. It is a fantastic start from Fuzi though, who's already challenging. Shermatinsky going around the outside into third position. Oh my goodness me, for Fuzi up to fifth in all of that. That is a fantastic launch from him. Felix leading the way from Van der Koekout though, in behind. Shermatinsky's fighting for the podium though. I think he might be getting up into second position. What a start from Shermatinsky.
That was absolutely epic. But look, it is actually Niels van der Koekout that leads. He got an absolute flyer of a start on Felix, and Shermatinsky going side by side. So two Chevys going at it. And Makush, Fuzi, Brzezinski, Szymanski, Lima, Doricott, Moriarty, that's your top 10. And they are kicking up the dust going through the Shell Oils hairpin. But that was one hell of a start. Niels van der Koekout got exactly the drive he needed coming out of Deerleap, and let Neil. We've got one of the beamers off there. I think that is Makush dropping down the order. He'll be way outside of the top 15.
Yeah, that was a big moment there coming out of Britain's there. I'm not sure if he was assisted or did it of his own accord, but he absolutely went. Looking backwards from Fuzi, we've got Brzezinski, you've got Szymanski as well in all of that. Yeah, it was a great start from Van der Koekout and Shermatinsky as well, as McGlade drops down the order. I also saw in the top right hand of your screen, you saw Yegor Rognikov, who was off. Oh, that's a big off there. Oh no, I thought he was going straight into the wall there with Szymanski, but managed to keep out of all of that. That was not an ideal way to start the race. We're already seeing some drivers pushing it to the very limit here at Oulton Park, as we see Lima and Szymanski going side by side. That's not true. It's not them two.
Yeah, but that's a real unfortunate moment there for Makush in the BMW. I mean, he was absolutely mega in qualifying, but you can now, we're with Thiago Lima, who's got Nick Balzer just up ahead, and then he's got Sean Moriarty just behind in the McLaren. This is going to be an epic scrap, and then you've got a few other cars just behind. But yeah, I just feel really disappointed for Makush, because at the end of the day, that was not his fault, possibly. But if we do get a replay, that'd be great to see. But Niels van der Koekout has got an absolute headway at the moment. He's 1.7 seconds ahead of the radioactive Chevy Camaro GT4 of Ivan Shermatinsky and Andre Felix, rounding out the top three. So it's Alpine versus two Chevys, and then Marcel Fuzi up to fourth.
Yeah, we had some side-by-side behind this. There's Rob getting passed by Skula, and I think that was Killian Ryan-Meenan in all of that, as Cormac Ryan-Meenan's the one who's been moving up the positions up to 16th place at the moment. So working the way up the order, started from 24th, so already +8 in all of this. I thought that was someone off the road then, but no, it's just a tyre barrier that has been shot off at Hislop, so that one's already gone for a runner from the apex. At the second part of that, we're focusing on Skula in the middle of the field, a little bit of dust being kicked up as they run up through Clay Hill. It's easy to do. It's surprisingly easy actually to have a crash through there, because as you go up and over the crest, it's the same at Deerleap, only you've got a lot more of a run to the right side. When you go up over the crest, obviously the front of the car lifts up off the road and you start to understeer, and it's really tricky to actually hook it back in, especially in cars like this. Let's take a look at the replay, Alex.
Okay, that is Marcel Fuzi towards the outside of Makush. Now Fuzi goes off the circuit, and you can just see how close this is going to be, right up close and personal. That's going through Britain's, and now Fuzi gets tags him from behind, and Makush, the left rear, snags the barrier and turns the front around into it. So yeah, Marcel Fuzi, I'm not too sure. As always, Race Control very much are on their A game every time we go racing here at SimGrid. So I'm wondering if that's going to be investigated. I think it was just the fact that Fuzi just got a good run, and he just got, I think he just got not outplayed, but I think it was more a case that Fuzi just didn't have an opportunity to get out of the way, and we're going to see a little bit further down the order. Now the end there, and now that was the number 67 Mercedes that got turned around there at Boguki that actually got turned around there, going through. I think that was through into Hislops and into Knickerbrook, as the Schooler fan club from the USA is out there, as he does a bit of Knight Rider styling, going through into Hislops and then into Knickerbrook. But he's currently P14 ahead of Boardman and Cormac Ryan Meenan, who's now up into 16th place. So it's Chevy versus 2 Alpines. We're going to now go on to and I think we've had a disconnect, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's David Christie.
Yeah, that is a shame. Was that Igor Rognikov that took a bit of a whack in all of that? I believe it was. Yes, the number 41, who's got escorted wide. It's absolute chaos into Hislops on the first lap, almost as we were expecting. It's the joy of that corner. It's very, very tricky, and everyone's trying to make an overtake. Going through there side by side at the best of times is quite tricky, but when you have got a car ahead, car behind, car to the right, you're effectively locked in to the idea of going through there side by side, and there is very little that anyone can do. A quick note on the McCouche and Fusi incident. I think that McCouche just sort of took a little bit too much curb ahead, and so had to lift out of it, whereas Fusi sort of expecting the acceleration out of the corner. And I will say this, I don't think that is the last time we will see an incident like that there, because the curb, you do slow down quite a lot over it, because you've got to lift out of it on the left-hand side here. It's not too bad there, actually, but if he was lifting out of it, it might have just been one of those things. Fusi obviously has to be prepared for that kind of stuff, so, you know, I'm not saying that it's not his fault, just playing devil's advocate a little bit there. Andre Felix, though, applying pressure to the back of Shermatinsky after starting from pole position and dropping down the order. Niels van der Kekelt, who's leading the way by 2.1 seconds. I fancy that margin. Seemed like it was coming down to Shermatinsky, and Felix almost looked faster. Schoolers going back, though, as he's been overtaken by Boardman and Cormac Ryan Meenan, who progresses up even further. Not sure what happened there, but either way, being escorted down. Wyszynski, though, trying to move on Fusi, going into the final corner of the circuit. Is he going to make anything stick? No, he's not, and the Aston Martin's going to stay ahead.
Yeah, and I've just Killian Ryan Meenan and Cormac Ryan Meenan here, Lewis, have actually both gained 9 positions from the start of this race. So Killian started in P20 and Cormac started in P24. So it seems like these two, since they've got the opportunity, you know, you had the 90 minutes of Snetterton last week, we've now got Oulton Park. They are absolutely making mincemeat of the field around them, going through the order, as Giancarlo Scula has been served by Boardman and Ryan Meenan. But yeah, I think, Wyszynski and Fusi, that's a really interesting battle. But then Felix is not too far away from Shermatinsky, so it's the battle of the Chevrolets, as the Alpine and Niels van der Kekelt has a 2.5 second advantage with just over 52 minutes and 20 seconds still to go. I mean, it's full attack for these Chevys, but Niels van der Kekelt has scarpered into the distance like a scalded cat on a hot tin roof.
Have you noticed how every time we look at Shermatinsky, that Mike Yao is doing it from an onboard from Felix's point of view, so we get an unobscured view of this radioactive Camaro, which I absolutely love. So thank you to our broadcast director. It is quite glorious. He is applying pressure though with Felix. No way through at the moment, but he's certainly sitting there and trying to maybe force something through. There's Igor Rognikov further down the order, trying to work his way up, and maybe we're expecting a little bit better pace from him, but he does get by the 100 car there of Marivala and up into 20th position himself. It's still got a fair amount of work to do if he wants to progress further. But on your point of the Ryan Meenans, both of them, if they could qualify a little bit better, fantastic wheels, excellent. If they could qualify a little bit better, you wonder what else they could take from an evening of racing, because they both clearly have good racecraft. They both clearly have great pace in the race, and so for the last couple of races, just need to figure that qualifying, or maybe they're intentionally qualifying a little bit lower so they can have a bit more fun.
Yeah, I think coming back to that highlighter-esque style livery, and that's what it looks like. Someone's applied a highlighter and put a bit of lacquer over the top of it. We've got a great battle here. This is Alexander Dorokot versus Nick Baltzar and Thiago Lima. This is for 7th, 8th and 9th, or 6th, 8th, 7th and 8th, and they're now going into Shell Oil's corner. And Baltzar he's like the piggy in the middle here, Lewis, because effectively Doricot's trying to get away in that McLaren. We know that it's got good straight line speed, and now that was a bit of a track cut there, I think, possibly from Doricott. So they've got to watch it, even though we're nearly into the completion of the first 10 minutes of this race. Nick Baltzar, he has been known for his defensive displays here on SimGrid, and he's keeping Thiago Lima at bay. But as I say that, he goes through into Hislop's and then into Knickerbrook. He keeps the Porsche battle still going on as Doricott scampers up the road going through Deer Leap.
Yeah, that was a bit of a mistake, and I think he's going to be struggling through Hislop's and Knickerbrook, and then they'll run into Druids. Just a little bit too much speed going into Hislop's, and it's opened the door for Lima to be a part of this. Now, if I was Lima in this battle, what I was going to say was I'd potentially leave Baltzar to try and get past Doricott and then try and take advantage of that a little bit later. Alas, with that mistake from Baltzar, now Thiago Lima has to make a move, because if he doesn't do so shortly, he's going to see some things disappear into the distance in the form of Doricott. Here is his greatest opportunity so far on the run down the hill to Cascade. He's looking to the inside, but he's definitely not close enough to send it from there, and doesn't do so. Fuzi has picked up a 5-second penalty. That'll be, I'm assuming, for an incident.
Yeah, that will probably be the incident between himself and Makusha, I would imagine.
Yes.
We're just waiting for that to come through from race control. So Marcel Fuzi, at the moment, he's about 1.5 seconds up the road from Wyszynski in the 96, as Thiago Lima now coming under fire, and that is Sean Moriarty in the number 2. He's trying to put it around the outside there. God, that's brazen in a McLaren when you try and do that to a Porsche. As now they go through into Britain's, and that McLaren is also a bit of a dark horse, and yes, 5-second penalty to Marcel Fuzi for the incident on lap 1 involving cars number 137 and 94 for aggressive driving, in the words of race control there. So Marcel Fuzi will have to serve that. I think what he'll do is he'll just try and keep that car out as long as possible within the pit stop window, depending on how high he's brimmed the tank in that Aston Martin. Serve that 5 seconds, and then obviously take whatever fuel he's going to put on board and then get out of the pit lane. But that puts him in as a disadvantage coming towards the second half of the race here.
Oh, look at the corner. The mid-corner speed at the moment from Felix looks much, much better than Shermatinsky, but he didn't tactically play out the final corner there into Lodge that well. He could have, maybe tried to go to hold it around the outside and then go for the cutback. He took a little bit too much speed and ran onto the exit, but certainly Andre Felix looks the faster of the two at the moment. 3.5 seconds up the road. Vatikakel has gone, so he has absolutely run away. Skula's had some problems though, because he's dropped back to 18th, so something's been happening to the 13 car to drop him further down the order. Now he's under attack from Igor Ogoroknikov, who's desperate to move his way up. We saw him move up into 20th position, and now even a little bit further as our eyes focus on him. We know that fan club will be going mad any positions he can pick up over the race. 47 minutes left to go, so there's plenty of time for him to move up the order, but every driver that he passes, the next one will potentially become more difficult, as theoretically they are faster.
Yeah, great battle here. Now this is now that's Skula. That's actually, well, no, it wasn't Skula. That was Whitlock that has just got past Pochopien in the 444 Mercedes. I've just been keeping an eye on Igor Ogorodnikov's lap times in comparison with him and Giancarlo Skula. Ogorodnikov last time around on lap 7 was just over 0.4 of a second quicker. So we know that the Porsche's got the pace, as Pochopien goes up close and personal to the back bumper of Whitlock at the moment. Now, Pochopien's now had a 15-second time penalty given to him. So whether that is for an incident, we're just getting that clarified now from race control, which we'll have momentarily. That is going to really affect his pit stop, because I think at the end of the day, one of the other strategic calls are, okay, incident on lap number 1 between car number 67, and that was Boguki in the other Mercedes. And now that's definitely an off-track moment and a half there. That was Whitlock. That just lost it, and Ogorodnikov nearly got collected in the process, and so did Maravilla from Portugal. Oh, Igor Ogorodnikov, you're a very lucky boy indeed, going through Deer Leap right then.
I thought he was gone. I would. As soon as that Camaro started coming back towards the racing line, I thought that was it for Ogoroknikov. Alas, not. He is very, very lucky. I almost wonder if he didn't even realise what was happening, because he was quite close to the back of Skula, and then obviously would have seen the car coming from the left-hand side. The contact, though, I'm not sure how harsh it actually was. You'd hope it wasn't too, as you can see a little bit of damage there on the left-hand rear of the Porsche. So I'd assume he's feeling a little bit, but hopefully it's not too bad. He's on the back of Skula and going to try and move his way past soon. He gets a 5-second time penalty, though, for his troubles, does the number 41 of Igor Ogoroknikov. So the penalties are coming in thick and fast.
Yeah, we're now into the second quarter of this race. Just over 44 minutes and 45 seconds still to go here at the 60 minutes of Oulton Park with GT4 machinery. We've still got around 24 out of the 26 runners and riders still competing here. As now, here's what has been indicated by race control. So Igor Ogoroknikov gets a 5-second time penalty for aggressive driving on an incident involving himself and Portugal's Ricardo Maravilla, who is actually behind him by about nearly a second. So again, this brings in a new strategy call. The drivers are going to have to think on the fly here, Lewis, and especially with Pochopien being hit with the most substantial time penalty for the pit stop window, which will actually start with 33 minutes on the clock. That's 11 minutes away, if memory serves. Well, around about 11 minutes away. And to be honest with you, you can just see how hard Ogoroknikov is now pushing behind Giancarlo Skula there in the 13 Camaro. But I think Whitlock got away narrowly with that one, because he's a few places down. He's down in 22nd as the 818 at the minute.
Skula played that very, very smart. He did the same thing with Pochopien as well a little bit earlier, where he effectively let the car go, saw the time penalty that Pochopien had, and at least that's how it seemed, let him go. And there with Igor Ogoroknikov, just as soon as he saw the pace coming, was just like, okay, fine, just go, because you've got a time penalty and I'm going to be ahead of you at some point in the race anyway. Let's not waste time on this. I love that mentality, like using your brain in the race, thinking about the long game. Absolutely love it. We need to see more of that kind of stuff, please. We focus on Babin on the back of Sean Moriarty, who's moved up the order. I'm pretty sure he qualified outside of the top 10, did Moriarty, in the number 2 car, and has worked his way up. Either way, he's in 9th place at the moment, so doing fine work as things stand. Oh, there's a crash. Oh no, there is a big crash there for the Alpine of Andy Boardman. That is monstrous coming out of Druids. We've seen plenty of incidents there in the British touring cars. I distinctly remember Nicholas Hamilton had a crash there with a couple of other drivers involved in a really, really large crash. I think it was last year or the year before. Oh, you don't like to see it.
No, and that is going to have significant damage on that Alpine A110S GT4. That's a real shame for Boardman. And at this stage of the race, that's a hefty incident. That's actually the biggest incident that we've actually had so far in this race, as Andre Felix still trying to close up on the highlighter Chevrolet Camaro of Ivan Shermatinsky. Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a look. You were saying about Moriarty. Well, he actually started he qualified in P9 after quali. So he's basically exactly still where he started. We're going to have a replay now, and this is Boardman coming through. Now he's just lost it. He's just gone run wide. Oh, that's a definite front end impact, and he gets collected. Now, was that one of the right? I'm not too sure who that was, but that was definitely a moment that Andy Boardman in the number 69 will definitely want to forget in a hurry.
I think it was Cormac Ryan Meenan who's out of the race, it seems, or at least in the pit lane. So that is a huge shame after climbing up the grid. It's so easy to do. When you're running out through Druids Corner, you've got a little bit of curb, and then afterwards you've got a little bit of sort of astroturf, and then you've got grass. And if you run over the curb, you can just about survive. This is on board with Cormac Ryan Meenan. Let's watch. That's a bit rough. I think maybe he could have reacted a little bit better, in the sense of you could see the incident happening coming out of Druids, and I think he maybe could have reacted a little bit better and gone to the right-hand side. But it's kind of one of those things. Everything happens so fast in an instant like that that sometimes being a part of it is almost unavoidable.
Yeah, very much the case, because it's a split-second decision. Cormac would have had a choice of, do I go left, do I go right? And that's a 50-50 call. You think, I might be able to get through that gap, but for Cormac Ryan Meenan, it was not enough to get through. He wanted to just basically get past Andy Borman after that massive front-end impact. Good to see that Eavesfield is actually bringing back the beast of the Green Hell when the Mercedes-AMG GT was actually released with Lewis Hamilton around about 2016, and actually was in that very same colour. I remember that because I actually did a bit of a 2,500 kilometre road trip, and one of the stops on my travels was actually the Nürburgring itself. Just a quick stop at the M-Power Tribuna, but yeah, they had all the marketing spiel all on the walls and everything, leading you towards the paddock area where you could spend expensive, spend your money on expensive trinkets. I did that with the BMW official Puma Motorsport fleece back in 2016, and that was not cheap.
No, of course, any sort of... it's the reason they're all so expensive. Is so, you're supposed to spend an awful lot of money and then put an awful lot of value into it in yourself, and believe that it's worth all of this. And I just hope that one day someone else will buy that kind of stuff for me instead of me paying for it, because otherwise I will not have any money in my bank account, because that's just how it works. You just I could have that, I could have that, just no, it's dangerous. It is really dangerous, because
that's why I made your purchases now, Lewis. I just look at the app on my phone just in case. It's like, I actually now we've actually, funnily enough, we've got the Nick Baltzar fan club. Forget the Ogorodnikov fan club. We've got the Germans in the house. They're actually asking for a shot of Nick Baltzar, who's just over 0.7 of a second away from Alexander Doricott. And also, not too far behind him is Portugal's Thiago Lima in the 101. So the battle for 6th to 8th is heating up once again. And on cue, thank you very much, Mr. Mike Yao, we have Nick Baltzar right, front and centre here, as they're now making their way down into his lops before the right-hander at Knickerbrook. Baltzar again, showing good consistency, keeping Doricott very, very honest, but Thiago Lima doing a standout job at the moment, and Lima actually started in the position that Nick Baltzar is in at the moment. As we go to Eavesfield, one of the other regulars here, Killian Ryan Meenan started P19. He's now in 10th position with Eavesfield, and Alexander Hub closing down as they now make their way down into Druids. But that's a great performance there from Killian Ryan Meenan in the Alpine, actually the second highest Alpine. And now Wenlock has just had the first drive-through, so the track cuts. 3 strikes and you get a drive-through penalty. That's a real shame. Owen Wenlock in the number 90, who started down in 17th. He's now currently P22. That's put his race a bit too much with a spanner in the works there.
Yeah, nice move there from field, by the way, at the final corner. Brilliant stuff on the inside of Killian Ryan Meenan. So as much as he's got a big plus by his name, does Killian Ryan Meenan, there is one for the negative and dropping back a position. You were brave, by the way, to say forget the Yiga Ogorodnikov fan base. They're going to be even less happy with you now. They'll be coming after you.
You can't please everybody.
No, of course not.
Everybody.
It's great to see, though, all of the fan bases and stuff in chat. Love to see it, and definitely to see more, because when you're a driver, sometimes having the support of even a couple of other people just sort of gives you that extra little bit, extra tenth, that extra bit here and there. A little bit of a note a bit further up the grid, Shematinsky still holds us about 3.5 seconds from Van der Kuyt, so he's holding station roughly. It's gone out an extra couple of tenths from where it was, but Andre Felix does not have the pace to stick with Shematinsky at the moment. Curious as to where his pace has gone, because he's now lost 2 seconds to P2.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a lot. I mean, he was actually just over 4.5 tenths slower on that last lap to Shematinsky. So Andre Felix, his tyre, I mean, he might have overworked his tyres a bit too quickly in this first part of the race, and that's one of the things you don't want to do here at Oulton Park. As you said, you want to be aggressive enough to get tyre temp and brake temp into the car, but then as soon as you start overdriving that vehicle, if Felix has been doing that to try and pass Shermatinsky and then go after Van der Kekau, I think he's done that way too early, because now, if his tyres are absolutely off the edge of a cliff in terms of degradation, he's now got to make that choice. Do I chance it? Do I put new tyres on? Because in 2.5 minutes, that pit stop window opens for 6 minutes only.
Yeah, I don't think you can take new tyres, because it's just the length of that pit stop is going to be so long. You effectively got to say to yourself at the start of the race, these are my tyres until the end, and you've got to look after them. You're absolutely right. You start out aggressively to try and get heat into the tyres, but after a certain point, you need to control yourself. It is all about self-control. It is all about balance, and it is all about judging whether you need to make a move now or how you play it. I mean, maybe Felix has looked at his tyres and gone, actually, if I keep pushing at this rate, they're going to be nowhere in 35 minutes. So if he's playing his cards now, he might be backing off now to come back in later on in the race. I don't necessarily feel, I think he may have just overworked his tyres in the opening 25 minutes of the race, which is not good for his current position, because if you're overdoing it now, well, there's still 35 minutes left on the clock, and that will become harder and harder and harder as the race goes on, unless you get on top of the problem. We're focusing on Nick Baltzar, on Doricott as well. Doricott under an awful lot of pressure, but doing really, really well to fend it off. The next time they come round to complete a lap, that pit window will be open. Now, if you're Baltzar, you've got a car ahead of you that you want to get by. If I'm in that scenario, I'm sat there in the 50 thinking, if he pits, I don't. If he stays out, I pit. Whatever he does, do the opposite and get yourself some clean air.
Yeah, we just had another incident being reported to race control. They've just come back to us. The drive-through penalty for Owen Wenlock was for a failure to hold brakes after an incident between both him and the 137 of Makush earlier on lap number 4. So Makush has been in the wars twice. They say that lightning never strikes twice, but unfortunately for Radoslav Makush this evening, it definitely has done so, as we are literally seconds away from the pit stop window opening, a short 6 minutes. And one of the things that I'm expecting here, Lewis, is you're going to see some drivers dash in early, you're going to see some drivers wait and bide their time and leave it to the last second possible to put it into the pits to give them the absolute optimum advantage going into the second half of the race.
But you've got to be careful not to serve it too late. I've been commentating on another championship that has a designated pit stop time. Oh, as we've got some side-by-side on the bottom right-hand side of your screen there is Papillon and Skula, and I think that might have Szymanski as well, was there out of the corner dragging it. I think they are indeed. It is on the left-hand side of your screen. It's Skula who's going to drop in behind Szymanski, who's moving his way up the order. Not sure. I think there was contact between the two of them. Couldn't quite see in the bottom right-hand of the screen, but into Britain's, I'm pretty sure there might have been something. Either way, they were side-by-side and cost themselves a whole heap of time. Let's see if anyone pits from this group. What are they going to do? Baltzar, he's going to get blocked by that Ginetta though. Oh, so either way, did not have the option. If you leave it too late in the window, back to my original point, if you leave it too late in the window, you may go, I'll go an extra lap. And boom, you're minute 26.
That was David Christie going to the pits right there. So here is the number 13 of Giancarlo Skula, and that is Szymanski just behind, but then Pochopien. Now this is going through the Shell Oils hairpin. They're now going to go round towards Britain's, and Skula's towards the outside. Pochopien's going towards the inside. The bang door panels there, and then Szymanski tries to get past the number 13 Chevy coming out of the chicane on the run down. And this is now where it's going to be they were on their way down to Hislops, and now Maravilla has pitted, Wenlock has pitted again. So some drivers coming in early. We've got about another 4.5 minutes of this pit stop window, and I completely agree. I also commentate on other championships where a pit stop window is open, and I have seen it where people have left it to the last dying second, like literally as they cross the pit line, the speed limiter line, literally the timer hit 0. And you don't want to chance that in such a small window of opportunity with 4 minutes to go. It's anyone's guess who's going to be the one that blinks first. Oh, there's dramas for Killian Ryan Meenan. Now, he was running P10, having started P19, and that's a big off.
That's huge. That is such a shame. Of course, we saw Cormac Ryan Meenan being involved in an incident earlier, and now Killian Ryan Meenan bites as well. Oh, they're all coming to the pit at the same time. So Doricott and Bowles are coming. I don't think Lee Maford, no, he is staying out to go and get himself some clean air. A few drivers coming into the pit lane then. I'm not sure about that strategy call from Baltar. I would have tried to stay out and try and get the overcut in a sense on Doricott, or maybe he's just going to try and go for a faster pit sequence or such. Either way, things, in my opinion, in that sense, might be looking quite good for Lee. We'll have to watch where he ends up in the sequence of all of that towards the end. So Felix as well into the pit lane and departing. There is Doricott, who you can see is out a fair way ahead of Balzar. So if he's going to get that move done, he's got to do it on track.
Yeah, Killian Ryan Meenan, Ryan Whitlock has now pitted, so Ryan Meenan is going to have to. The thing is that his race is pretty much done. He's going to have to use this, unfortunately, as in some ways a test session to really get that. And there's Niels van der Kakelt. He's on lap number 18, and he has literally not stopped. He's got an absolutely huge gap over Ivan Shermatinsky. And that gap now is around 4.3 seconds. We've got 3.5 minutes of this pit stop window still to go. So once we hit 33 minutes elapsed, that is it. Pit stop window is closed. If you have not served your pit stop, you get a 130-second automatic as the leader now pits. Van der Kakelt comes in on lap 18. Now, this is going to unlock the likes of Shermatinsky and Fuzi. Is Fuzi going to pull it into the pits? He does from P3. Now, he's got an additional 5 seconds to serve. So will Ogorodnikov. So will Skula. And you can just see that the likes of Easfeld, also Sean Moriarty now, he's effectively they've gone into the pit lane. So the drivers really, it's getting close to the wire. You're now going to see a raft of pit stops coming in. Ogorodnikov now comes in. You can see the amount of damage to the left front of that car. As Zimanski, he put on the brakes well and truly going into the pit lane right there, Lewis. That was nearly an infraction that could have cost him a stop-go 30.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone has to come in from it was a few seconds ago. We just passed the point where they wouldn't have been able to complete a lap. So everyone behind would have to come in. Shermatinsky, though, will be fine. He is far enough around, obviously, with the position he was in. He will be able to complete this lap. And so it'll be fine. He'll come into the pit lane at the end of this one and then come out of it. So realistically, looking fairly good as we've got the drivers leaving pit lane. I was about to be confused a little bit by the order, but we're okay. We're letting everyone cycle back out onto the race circuit. Shermatinsky looking pretty good. Wasn't surprised that Van der Kakelt came into the pit lane there. He had a bit of lap traffic that might have been Maravilla just ahead of him in the Porsche. Just came into the pit lane, was like, look, I'm either going to deal with lap traffic and potentially lose a bit of time, or I just pit now, not deal with lap traffic and hopefully come out in clean air, of which he has absolutely come out in clean air. You can see his little dot on the map on the right side, the number 47, that's on the furthest left part of the circuit, and you can see all of that lovely, crisp, clean air that he's got ahead of him, and behind as well, to show how dominant he has been.
Yeah, very much the case, as now we're 15 seconds away. Actually, Niels van der Kakelt, if he had actually kept it going for another lap, he could have made the pit stop work. But now he's going to overtake Shermatinsky in the... So he's done the undercut. He's got the hot lap in. He's done the bit of, as Lewis Hamilton would have normally been told by Bono back in the day, it's hammer time. Well, it's Van der Kakelt time in the Alpine this evening. 26 minutes and 55 seconds to go. And looks like I've seen a few drive-throughs pop up on the timing tower. Moriarty, Ogorodnikov and Handler.
Yeah.
Not too sure what that's for. But Wyszynski has a massive... Oh, now those three are for track limits. And Wyszynski had a bit of a moment there, and that allowed Thiago Lima to get past up into P4.
And I think
this has really changed everything.
He's not pitted yet. And the window's closed. Wyszynski's not pitted yet, and the window is done. So that'll be a big old time penalty headed his way for not following according to that rule. Also, just a bit of a note, P12, Alex. Andre Felix, what's happened? He was in third. What has happened to Andre Felix to that pit stop? I wonder if he has done your strategy and has taken tyres.
Yeah, because right up the inside of Nick Babin went Andre Felix. I think he might have heard me. He might have thought,
maybe.
Well, actually, yeah, I have knackered my tyres, and I will go for a look. Just look at the run he's getting out the corner. You know, Nick Babin is effectively just shown that Andre Felix, he fancies an opportunity to get back on the sharp end of the grid, and by doing that, I think, okay, it's going to take him a couple of laps or so to get his tyres up to 10, but if he does pull off what one of my friends in commentary likes to call a top gear from the rear, being down in 12th position, and get it back towards anywhere near to Van der Kerkelt. We've still got 25 minutes as well. Now, that was a bit of a naughty touch there, I think, from Nick Babin. But that might be classed as a racing incident. But Andre Felix had the run on Nick Babin, and he just went, well, you know what? I'm going to send it back up the inside of you. This is for position. And Andre Felix has just run a bit wide going through the exit of Deerleap and going through towards Old Hall. So Andre Felix, if he's got to get past Nick Babin, he's got to do that in the next lap or so to unlock himself and then go after Yves Veld. He'll have clean air, and we know how fast that Chevy can be in a straight line when you've got clean air in front of you.
Yeah, Lordy past Moriarty as well, who's got that drive-through penalty, running wide a little bit there through Cascades. That was not ideal from Nick Babin. For that instant up at Druids, I think it was just a little bit of Andre Felix running wide, as we might see the same thing again. They're going to hold it side by side. My goodness me, through Island Bend. That was brave stuff between the two of them. Andre Felix moves up into 11th position. Nick Babin, though, brave to hold it around the outside. I don't know if he knows what's happening tyre-wise, but that was brilliant stuff between the two, and an inspired attempt from Andre Felix, and to be fair, from Nick Babin to try and hang it around the outside. Another drive-through penalty then for Wyszynski as well to top it up with the lack of pit stop, so it'll be penalties all day for Wyszynski, and that is a shame. It's a fun event though, isn't it, Alex? You know, we're here for a bit of fun, and so I think some of these drivers maybe think, do you know what? If I can't win, I might as well get out there and just have a bit of fun and just enjoy myself and see what I can get from it. And I think that's almost exactly what Felix is doing, is just trying to put on a good race, a good display, maybe sharpen up some of his overtaking moves around the circuit, which is difficult to overtake at the best of times.
Yeah, I mean, especially with some of the upcoming, rounds of, like, say, Sprint Cup and other things, you want to make sure that you're ready for these, these quick fire championships. Okay, the Sprint Cup's going to be 6 rounds over 12 weeks, and you know what? I think Jimbo Manzi 46 has said, I wonder if Felix abused the curbs early on and had a loss of pressure. Maybe if he's done that, not just overcooked the tyres, but has he had a slow puncture? That could be another reason why he might have changed his tyres and decided to go for it, as Igor Ogorodnikov now gets under pressure from Sebastian Handler. And Ogorodnikov, he's going to use this as a learning experience. The DLC's only been out for 8 days, and it's going to be one of these things where these drivers, they're going to have to prepare themselves for what's to come at the sim grid. I know for a fact there's lots of big things happening, a lot of stuff that ourselves as commentators, we don't know everything, so we can't tell you. But with the fact that Oulton Park now on Assetto Corsa Competizione, along with Snetterton and Donington Park, it's really brought a new invigoration towards SimGrid and also to the general community on Assetto Corsa Competizione. And now we see Sebastian Handler getting up close and personal with Ogorodnikov in the number 41. And this is for position, it's for 17th.
Yeah, it wasn't content that I was actually expecting to see, but it is a welcome sight in sim racing to see fantastic builds of all of these circuits, because it just completes, a calendar, of course, the British GT calendar that we've now got in Assetto Corsa Competizione. It fills that hole. It's some great British circuits which are all very, very unique. You compare Oulton Park to Snetterton, and that to Donington Park, and of course the ones already in the game, so Brands GP and of course Silverstone. You compare it to all of that. These are wildly different circuits in the greatest sense. There is very little consistency, and that's what makes them brilliant. That's what we like to see. And so for some of these drivers, they may gel better with one track than another. Ogrodnikov worked really well with Snetterton just a week ago. However, here at Oulton Park, things are fairly different and maybe just not gelling with the circuit quite as much. He is under an awful lot of pressure, though, from Handler for 17th place, a position 15 lower, I think it was, 14 lower than where he finished last week, but nevertheless is defending as hard as if it was for the podium. It doesn't matter, it's just like, here's the race, let's just get out there and race.
Yeah, very much. I completely concur with that, Lewis. Also, for those wondering about the penalty that's been given to Ryan Whitlock in the 818, there was an incident on lap 8 involving car 818, which is Ryan Whitlock, number 13 and number 41. That was Giancarlo Scula and Igor Ogrodnikov earlier on, and it was given to as now that's a block and a half from Ogrodnikov there, coming through into Britain's, and it was for aggressive driving on the part of unfortunately Ryan Whitlock, so he's got a 15-second time penalty for that issue. We've now into the final third of the race, just under 20 minutes to go. Track temperature in the meantime, Lewis, has very much increased because it's up to 16 degrees Celsius from 13, so an incremental increase of 3 degrees over the course of the race thus far.
Yeah, indeed. Obviously, all the running around and a bit of blue skies as well as we ride on board with Andre Felix from Reef Cam represent, as he is on top there. Field runs wide. The 585 is going to be on the inside for Cascades. We've got to go through the outside of the kink. That is all said and done for Andre Felix. That was lovely. Just showed his nose at the inside of T1 at Old Hall Corner and just let the Merc feel to kind of get inside his own head and just run a little bit wide and open the door for Andre Felix to get through. Next one is Wyszynski, who's the next car ahead in that blue AMG Mercedes. And the thing with that is, obviously, we know he's effectively out of the race, and I'm pretty sure Andre Felix will see that, so he'll want to sort of get by Wyszynski ASAP. This move has happened. Handler has got by Igor Ogrodnikov, so that position has already switched round, and Handler up to 17th place.
Yeah, that's definitely a seesaw opportunity there for both Ogrodnikov and Handler, as they're now going through Island Bend, deep onto the brakes into Shell Oil's corner. And this now has really become a fight for survival for Ogrodnikov, as they're now going to go down through the right-hand sweeper into the chicane here at Britain's. A lot of curb taken by both. You can see the amount of dust that's kicked up by Sebastian Handler there on both parts of it. So realistically, Ogrodnikov has got to fight for the next 18 or so minutes to try and get that position back. And what that's doing in the meantime is that Pochopien has got up the road by about 4.7 seconds in 16th position.
It's where you kind of wonder at this point, you say a fight of survival, it's also a fight against track limits and stuff around here for quite a lot of these drivers, because I'm pretty sure that quite a few of them are quite close to being told off for their track excursions. And if you've got anyone that's sort of only with 1 or 2 left, 20 minutes, that's a very long time to avoid. We've already seen plenty of drivers with drive-throughs already courtesy of track limits, and there's so many places around here to pick one up. And so you kind of wonder if anyone, you might see a late race change courtesy of someone else picking one up fairly high up the grid. Is Van der Kerkhout close? Is Shermatinsky close? Because if they have to serve a drive-through, that's going to be very costly in the dying moments of this race. Battle for 8th place, Wyszynski and Felix.
Yeah, so Felix closed up what was a 1.5 second gap up to Wyszynski. So he's now got a real good amount of pace in that car. Now, look at it from this perspective, Lewis. The last lap around, we're on lap number 25. Wyszynski, a 1 minute 54.366. Now, that was well off pace, so he's had a few dramas, I believe, but he would have obviously served his drive-through penalty here at Oulton Park. Felix is one of the fastest drivers on track. He's done a 1:42.489. He is at least, that's 3 tenths quicker than Van der Kerkhout in the lead, who's got a lead of 4.1 seconds ahead of Ivan Shermatinsky, with Marcel Fouzi rounding out the top 3 with 16.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, some mega lap times from Andre Felix. We're not. I don't think we should be too surprised by it. I mean, he did have the pole position, so has clearly gelled well with the circuit, and potentially on at least a fresh set of something tyre-wise. Don't know quite what he's done in the pit stop or how he's done that pit stop. If it was a slow puncture, the thing is, the reason why I'm not so sure about that is that he was slow for quite a long time, and that if it was a slow puncture, surely it would have made much more of an impact, particularly later in the stint, because he dropped off sort of like a couple of tenths here, a couple of tenths there, and a little bit. I'm very curious as to what actually happened with the 88. But either way, regardless of that, there was a loss of pace from it for a couple of laps. Came into the pit lane, came in for a longer stop, and now it's much faster again. So, read into that what you will. Obviously, there was something fixed on that pit stop, and so the base assumption would be that of tyres. Certainly looking very fast now, but battling with someone who he needs to clear very sharp if he wants to get himself further up the grid, because Wyszynski's not a driver that he's supposed to be fighting with. Still, we know there's a penalty coming for this car, so he needs to clear him fast.
Yeah, very true. As you can just see how much on the ragged edge Wyszynski is at the moment, battling away with Andre Felix, and the amount of times that you're actually seeing the dust kicked up by the Mercedes, whereas Felix, now that he's got this pace back, he's just keeping it neat and tidy. He's making sure he doesn't make any unforced errors. And you look at the gap between them and Yves Veld in the number 585 Mercedes. They're now coming through into Druids, and you can just see Andre Felix has really got a confident car underneath him, and he's got full confidence in his abilities and also belief in what the car is doing underneath him, to know that he can plant that car exactly where he needs to in terms of Wyszynski. So Wyszynski, you can feel he knows that the pressure is there, but is he going to make a mistake that's going to open the door for Felix and allow him to get through? We've still got 14 minutes and 20 seconds of this race remaining. It's anyone's guess how far up the order Felix is going to get by the checkered flag.
And every lap, though, that he's held behind Wyszynski is another lap that he's not being able to progress. He's not being able to fight for those positions. And it's more time that he needs to close in a short period, because at this point, he's going to have to lap about half a second faster. But in a few laps' time, he'd have to lap a second faster than everyone ahead to make any progress. Battle of 15th on the grid as another battle which has a penalty for someone, because Ryan Whitlock has a 15-second time penalty, but Pocopion directly behind is looking fairly pacey at the moment, all over the back of that Camaro, trying to find any which way through. You can see Handler in the background has pulled a decent gap to Yegor Ogoroknikov for 17th place, and is potentially closing in on this battle. It's another one where the longer that Pocopion is behind Ryan Whitlock, the more of a chance that Handler will be closing in that number 11 car, and with very short period of the race to go, if he can clear him and start making a little bit of gap, there is no threat from behind. Yeah,
I completely agree there. And it's just all about making sure that, as I was saying with regards to Andre Felix, who's still literally within 2.5 tenths of a second of Wyszynski for 8th place, that battle, I think the way it's just happening, I think Felix is actually now stuck, and Wyszynski's now the cork in the bottle, a bit like this situation here with Pocopion and also Whitlock. But Whitlock, we know, as you've already alluded to earlier, Lewis, with that 15-second time penalty, that's going to drop Whitlock probably outside of the top 18 by the checkered flag. And good to see that David Christie is still running in the 64 Ginetta. He's running in 20th position, but I do have to give him a bit of a shout out, Mr. Christie, because at one point he was actually ahead in the early stages of this race in front of Yegor Ogoroknikov.
He'll be really happy flying past, and then obviously this race has not gone too well, but I'm sure he'll be maybe I'd say he should be getting a bit of a thumbs up from the Ogoroknikov fan base for that. Why not? Oh, there he is, directly ahead of this battle as well. Blue flags are out for David Christie, is just hopping over the chicane. Nice, that's actually quite good. Just get out of the way as best as possible. So commendable there for David Christie, and allowing Wyszynski still the time to defend from Andre Felix. And I've said this before, is that you can be 2 seconds a lap faster or whatever, and the moment that you catch a driver, you need to make that move stick immediately, because every lap that you sit behind, it's sort of like you just become their pace. You're on their pace now, and it's then so much harder to get by. it'd almost be easier if he were to back off a second and then come back and try and make a move again, rather than constantly just sitting behind. Although this is his best opportunity, as running wide there, Wyszynski, it's opened the door. Oh, that was massively wide at Druids, but it has opened the door, and Andre Felix has come through just as Yves Veld was also coming back into this. That was an important move, and up into 8th place for Andre Felix. No move back here though, as Pocopion is still not able to get by Ryan Whitlock.
Yeah, just looking at the lap times just briefly, Yves Veld was actually quicker by a considerable margin. Wyszynski as a whole, now that's a bit of an off-track excursion and then some from Pocopion coming through out of Druids and heading towards Lodge Corner, as he's still right up close and personal with Whitlock. We've just been having a look, as I was just alluding to there for a moment. Felix was running on a 1:43.1. Wyszynski, because of that off-track excursion, a 1:43.9. Yves Veld, a 1:43.2. So just under a tenth off of Felix. So I don't think Yves Veld is quite satisfied with 10th place. I think he's going to try and go over, try and get into 9th if he can get past Wyszynski, as long as Wyszynski tries to not make any off-track excursions like we just saw a moment ago with him and Andre Felix.
Yes, certainly looking really fast at the moment is the 585. There was also another potential move there for Pocopion down into Cascades, but no way through at the moment. This Camaro is just being quite wide. It is a wide car regardless, but it is being driven in a much wider fashion by Ryan Whitlock, who is desperate to defend. Oh, very much overdoing the corner, massively overdoing the corner. There's an instant for Pocopion, and there is no doubt whose fault that was. That was so overdone into Britons, and Pocopion, that was not great. That really wasn't. Just overdid it, a bit too ambitious, tried to make it stick around the outside, but almost tried desperately to stick onto the road, then skipped off to the grass, lost all grip, and that crash was an inevitability. Yeah,
I think it was a case that also Whitlock, nigh on straight lining the first part, going through into Britons. Yeah, it was just a case that Pocopion went to go and send it through the second part of it, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose, and both of them end up off onto the grass. And credit to Whitlock for doing the old Repco Supercars turnaround, like literally lighting up the rear tyres and spinning the car around in the right direction, as we're now going to go to a replay. And this is the moment where it happens. Pocopion literally straight lined the chicane, went into the side of Ryan Whitlock, and as a matter of fact, Igor Ogorodnikov capitalises as a direct result, and now, having started 21st, he's in P15 with 8.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, not bad. Just sort of saw the incident unfolding and just drove around it. Thankfully, all the incident happened on the right-hand side of the road for him, so it's pretty easy to drive through. Still gave a little bit more room, did Ogorodnikov. So not bad from him. Pretty easy the easiest moves that he'll make all year, dare I say. Just driving on the racing line and, and avoiding everyone. Yves Veld, though, will have a bit of a harder task to get by the number 96. 8 minutes left on the clock, catching another Mercedes. So there's no extra grunt, there's no extra downforce, there's no extra nothing to get him past in this scenario. He needs to battle the car that is exactly the same as what he has and do it properly, and it's not going to be an easy move. We saw Wyszynski defend quite well earlier, and you get the feeling with the timer ticking down, the desperation of defending more is, you really want to hold in place because it's, if you've got 15 minutes to go, you're thinking, I can't defend like this for 15 minutes. If you've got 7 minutes to go, though, now that's doable.
Yeah, well, I think Alexander Rab's going to have to watch his rear bumper very, very quickly, because just on 52.5 minutes completed in this race, Andre Felix has put in the fastest lap of this race, a 1:41.841. Over the last 2 laps, Lewis, he's taken over close to 2.5 seconds out of Alexander Rab, and he is about 1.5 seconds behind. We've just had another penalty issued. This time is to the 444 of Pocopion, 15 seconds for avoidable contact with Ryan Whitlock. So Andre Felix, with 6 minutes and 50 seconds to go, with that pace, I'm going to say, I wonder what Michael Hamlet is going to say. Where is his prediction of where Andre Felix is going to be? I possibly suspect, you've got Alexander Rabb and Nick Baltzer up the road. I think possibly top 6 is not out of the realms of possibility.
Balzar will be very much on the table.
Oh, and I've just heard he's actually passed Alexander Rabb now for position. So Andre Felix coming out of the pits at what, 13th, 14th place. And Raab he just let Andre Felix to get past, and there it is, as they're now going through into Lodge Corner and into Deerleap. Andre Felix now has got an opportunity to close up on Nick Baltzar, and that gap now is 6.2 seconds. But the biggest question here is Felix, for the last 3 laps, has been running in the high 141.8s and 141.9s.
Oh,
running in the 143.3s as now that's a good move there from Yves Veld. That was through Cascades of all places, and Wyszynski trying to go side by side on the run down to Island Bend.
I need to take a second look at that, because I'm pretty sure Wyszynski did not fight him on the run into Cascades, but is fighting him now regardless. He's got the inside, though, does Yves Veld, into the Shell Oil's corner. Oh, running far too far up the corner. Is Wyszynski going to drop him behind the other Mercedes? I'm pretty sure he didn't fight running down the hill, though, which is where it's like confusing that he didn't fight running down the hill, but then running out of Cascades was then battling as hard as he possibly could. Because I'm a little confused by that, but either way, it was a good move from Yves Veld, and a little bit of a mistake there from Wyszynski at the end. An important move, though, for Yves Veld, because he needs to set his sights a little bit further. He's got 4.5 seconds up the road, but it's more like the pressure coming in from behind. You've got Nick Babin, who's not too close, but still fairly close, but then just getting by Wyszynski to remove that threat at all. Andre Felix, I think there is potential for him to catch 6th place, but he does need to be nailing in the perfect laps very consistently into the checkered flag, and maybe needs a little bit of luck as well.
Yeah, it always does help to have a little bit of lady luck on your side, as there's the number 64 Ginetta of David Christie, currently still circulating in P20 as he now heads into the braking zone for Lodge Corner. That looks to be the number 2. Yeah, that's Sean Moriarty just getting past as David Christie pulls over to the right-hand side going through Deerleap and on the approach to Old Hall. Now, I'm just keeping an eye on the lap times again. Now, Felix, this time in comparison with Baltzar, they're 5.1 seconds between them. If Felix was taking like literally chunks of time out of it, like a second and a half a lap, he probably would have closed up. And there you go. There's another hashtag. We love Michael Hamlet. That's the team name on Mr. Christie's car tonight. But Sean Moriarty, in the meantime, has set the fastest first sector of anybody in this race with a 25.197. But Felix needs to claw, I think, a good couple of seconds a lap if he's going to have any chance of getting up close and personal and passing Nick Baltzar. But from what I've seen before from Nick Baltzar, once you have another car behind him, he puts on one hell of a defensive masterclass. Yeah, getting there, you hear it all the time in motorsport. Getting there is one thing, getting past is another, and that is entirely the same in this scenario as well. Although I think the task of even getting there would be a commendable one with very, very little time left on the clock. This battle is absolutely not done, as Wyszynski is trying to find any way back through. Of course, we know there's a big time penalty coming to the 10th place car, the number 96, for failure to complete the pit stop within the pit stop window. So the 96, the day is done, right? It is effectively over. He is going to drop down to 19th place in all of this. He'll only be ahead of David Christie, who's a fair way back on the road when it comes to the lap count. But still, you still want to battle as hard as you can for the positions that you can, and why not try and go for something? Wyszynski is close enough to potentially try at some point in the next 2 minutes and 10 seconds if he can hold that gap and close it in a little bit. Yeah, but the way that Wyszynski's had to wrestle with that Mercedes all the way through the last 58 minutes of this race here at Oulton Park, including the mandatory pit stop. Obviously, for those wondering what happened, well, you're required to fuel on that pit stop, even if it's a litre or two, as myself and Lewis were discussing a bit earlier on. So as a result of that, that's why he gets the significant time penalty. But I think it's just the way that he's been trying to handle that car. You've had people like Yves Veld, who's going to be effectively the the best finishing Mercedes tonight here at Oulton Park here, Lewis. And Eastfeld has showcased good skills throughout the events that he's competed in, particularly in the German Cup a bit earlier on this, during the last couple of weeks or so. But I think Felix, has now resigned himself to the fact that he won't catch up to Nick Baltzer with just over 1 minute and 10 on the clock remaining.
Yeah, not very long indeed. I wonder, there we go, straight to him as well. If Niels van der Kerkhout was about to start his final lap, he's certainly he is on the final. I was just trying to work out roughly how far he was into the lap. He's definitely on his final lap of the race, so we'll keep our eyes focused on him as he will come around to complete at number 47. It's been a great drive from him as well. Alex, he's not put a foot wrong and has just done his own thing. He's 13.2 seconds ahead of Shermatinsky.
Well, the biggest thing was when he got the launch, Andre Felix putting it on pole, and literally Van der Kerkhout went, right, here's my opportunity. I need to get in front. And what he did was he positioned the Alpine perfectly in comparison with the Chevy, and everyone else was caught napping. And that's why Niels van der Kerkhout has been absolutely dynamite. I've seen it where he's now commentated on him in other SimGrid events and also in other leagues, but just the way he has done everything to absolute perfection. We hit 0 on the clock and he's just about to come through to take one hell of a victory here at Oulton.
Yeah, round Lodge Corner and then up through Deer Leap. A week ago, it was all about strategy and working his way up the grid. This time, though, it was all about dominance from the front. Niels van der Kerkhout wins here at Oulton Park in the SimGrid GT4s. That was a fantastically dominant display. And Shermatinsky, get your sunglasses on, lads, as he comes across the line in second position. A great drive from him, fairly out of pressure after the first few laps where he was under pressure from Andre Felix. Did all the work there and managed to come across 8 seconds clear of Fuzi. Lima and Doricott in behind. Balzar is going to hang on from Felix in all of that. But fantastic display in the GT4s from Van der Kerkhout. There are some other great drives on the grid. Do not get me wrong. You've got to talk about the 2 Ryan Meenans who worked up the order so brilliantly. Unfortunately, instance for them drops them out of proceedings. Plenty of good drives outside of that as drivers tried to move their way up. Drivers maybe struggled with what is quite a tricky car around a tricky venue. But wow, what a drive from Van der Kerkhout.
Absolutely stellar. I've waited for him to hit the top step of the podium, and tonight he delivered. I mean, he effectively did a textbook Sebastian Vettel within the first 3 laps of the race here at Oulton Park. He got that gap. I think it was up to a second and a half within the first 3 quarters of the first lap here at Oulton Park, and no one could touch him, not even Ivan Shermatinsky. And that just shows that if you are on we talked about this in qualifying, that as soon as you got that at the front of the grid, Van der Kerkhout knew exactly how to play the game, and he played it perfectly.
Yeah, there's your order at the moment. It must be said, whilst they were battling out on the first lap between Shermatinsky and Andre Felix, Niels van der Kerkhout was like, yep, I'm out of here, lads. I'll leave you to it, and I'll see you when we reach the checkered flag, and just ran away in the most perfect way possible. And I think straight away, if we can get him, we'll get Niels van der Kerkhout in for an interview, as I'm pretty sure where we saw a week ago, it was a great drive up the order. It was about strategic balance. It was about using strategy. Whereas this week, it was dominance, and I'm pretty sure that might be a little bit more fun. Niels van der Kerkhout, that drive for you, absolute perfection.
Hey guys, thank you. Yeah, it was a rather calm race, to be honest. I just knew that the Alpine. This was the first time I've ever raced the Alpine, but in testing I found that with full fuel, or with like enough fuel for an hour, I was only a couple of tenths slower than I was on quali pace. So I just knew that I just needed a good start, and then I might have a really good shot at the win, which fortunately for me worked out really well.
Now, I said a week ago, you had a race about strategy, and in the wet conditions at Snetterton. Now we move over to Oulton Park. You're driving Oulton Park. Do you prefer Oulton Park to Snetterton? I mean, it certainly seemed like it with the performance you put on there.
No. I actually enjoyed last week's race a lot more, but that's just because I had to work for it a lot more. Today was just all about maintaining a good pace, making sure I don't drive off the track. Which is harder than it may seem on Oulton. But I kind of prefer Snetterton purely because of the fact you can actually properly race there. Oulton is just so narrow, so small. You can't really do anything. You can get behind a car, you can try and force the error, but you'll never really see any moves getting done on Oulton. So that's why I prefer Snetterton. But I mean, it was still great. I don't do GT4s all that often, but I definitely think Oulton is a wonderful track, just a wonderful track for GT4s.
Niels, it's Alex. Congratulations on the victory tonight. I want to ask you about that lightning quick reaction start you had on Andre Felix. You mugged him and you got, what was it, a second and a half up the road within the first lap or two. You caught him napping, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm just always kind of sweaty at the start. I just make sure that I absolutely maximize the limits of the widget you have, which of course brings a little bit of a risk, because if I go slightly over, I'd get a drive-through. But it's been going pretty well. I just knew that on Oulton as well, the outside is always the faster line. So even if I didn't already was a little bit ahead of him, I think I still would have just placed my car there on the outside and possibly have made the move stick. But yeah, I just caught him napping. That's exactly what it is. I caught him napping, and as soon as I was through turn one, I was like, okay, now it's just a matter of pushing hard, making sure the pace is consistent and fast, and I've got it in the back.
Well, thank you. Dominance was the name of the game for Niels van der Kuyt today. Great drive. Well done.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
And wow, yeah, what a drive it was. We need to find out, though, from Ivan Shermatinsky, who was the driver who ended up in second position today, 12.2 seconds down the road behind. Shermatinsky, who put in a bright drive, shall we say, in quite a bright livery. How was your Oulton Park experience?
Thank you, guys. It was my first race around here, and I expected it to be kind of that way. I didn't even notice the hour passing by. I really enjoyed that. But the only thing I got distracted is that for the first time, I don't know if it's a bug or what, but my pressures on the pit stop got resetted, although I didn't change the tires. I need to message the I don't know, developers probably about that. This kind of ruined my race, because I before the race starts, I initially pressured my tires a bit more. I would say about half PCI or higher than they should be, because I know that this track is getting you a lot of slow punctures, because you just need to attack the curbs and the grass. And just about when the pit window was open, my pressures got to the ideal zone, the ideal range, and I was ready to push. But after I stopped for 5 seconds and didn't even change the tires, my pressures got up to 28. So I just couldn't fight with Niels, because he was a lot faster because of that. So yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't fight with him for the last hour of race, but for the last half an hour. But overall, the race was a great experience, as always, with the sim grid. So thank you guys for organizing such an amazing event.
I do have to ask the really important question. Where was the inspiration for what is possibly the brightest livery that I have seen in a very, very long time? Yellow, green, and pink. Where's that come from?
I remember, I don't know how long ago it was, probably 2 or 3 months. I'm a kind of new streamer. I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I have a couple of viewers. And I was doing some great daily race in GT4s, and my viewer told me to do the worst possible looking livery, the abomination of something that I can do. And I've come up with something like this. So I remembered about it and decided to pick it for this race. I kind of adjusted it a bit, and when I entered the track, I saw that this livery was literally like shining. I was getting blind, so I decided to do a little fog moment and pick it, I guess. It was funny. I'm sorry if I hurt your eyes, but I decided it to be kind of funny.
Yeah, well, Ivan, congratulations on your second place. I think retina scar was one of the topics brought up on the YouTube chat this evening. But congratulations on second place here at Oulton Park, Ivan. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Catch up with you later. Good night.
So there we go, Ivan Shermatinsky. We're now going to bring in our final driver on the podium. Started P5 in the number 94. Aston Martin, if memory might serve me correctly, he did 3 races at the inaugural Super Saturday race back last month. Let's bring in Marcel Fusi. Good evening, Marcel. Firstly, congratulations. Started P5 in the race. There was a little bit of an incident involving yourself and Marcouche early doors where you got a really good turn of speed, but you finished P3. Just talk about your race for us.
Hey everyone, and thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say congrats to Niels. He was insane today. His pace was unmatched. And yeah, I'm really sorry about that incident. I couldn't do anything. He was so slow out of the corner. I even lifted and braked, but I couldn't do anything. I'm sorry for him.
Yeah, but still to be rather consistent all the way through the race. The Aston Martin, a very, very comparable vehicle around here at Oulton Park. What was it like behind the wheel? Just going through what's a very, very tough, technical and demanding circuit.
Well, yeah, the circuit is very hard, but the Aston is so easy to drive. But still, I managed to get too high tire pressure, so I was struggling the whole race. I could have been a little bit faster, I think. But anyway, it was a good race after all. I really enjoyed it.
Now, I need to ask a very, very pertinent question. Obviously, you did all 3 races at Super Saturday last month.
Yeah.
What's your plans for this coming Saturday? Are we going to see you competing in all 4, or have you decided to sort of throw a bit of less caution to the wind this coming Saturday at Donington Park?
No, I'm going to be there for all of them, all 4 races. Split one.
Oh, well, you Marcel, I think I gave you a nickname and it was definitely the Machine. So that's it. Well done, Marcel, tonight. Third place on the podium. Lewis, did you want to ask Marcel any questions before we... Well, actually, should we... Marcel, thank you for your time. I think without further ado, I think we need to bring in a certain particular part of the commentary team who's had some exploits on track. Shall we bring in David Christie, Lewis?
We certainly should. We absolutely need to hear his tones and tell us what happened with him out on track today, because for David Christie, he had a few laps on the board less than everyone else. We'll put it that way in the nicest possible fashion. Nevertheless, looked like you had a little bit of fun out there. How was your Oulton Park experience, David Christie?
Well, boys, I had to get the tissues out. I had a nosebleed. I did not belong in that split, but yeah, great experience, so much fun, and hashtag Project Not Last was very successful.
You did survive better than some, and obviously racing on Saturday as well. How's hashtag Not Last going to work in that one? Where are you attempting to be? How much practice have you put in?
Quite a lot, and to be honest, I'm not as hopeful on that one. Donington and the Porsche are a very difficult combination. Tonight was a little bit frustrating because I actually had a disconnect the first sort of 5 laps into the race, and I think I could have potentially gotten one or two more places, but I mean, it just gives you an idea of how fast and how respectful the racing is in these splits.
Well, David, good to hear your dulcet tones once again, my good friend. Right, I need to ask a quick question as your car has decided to start levitating on the circuit here at Oulton Park. Did you happen to notice that you were in front of one said number 41 by any chance? Igor Ogorodnikov?
I did. I also noticed him going past in a very slightly aggressive manner, and I've got to be honest, I was tempted to roll brakes off, but Sarah Heads prevailed. And do you know what it was? There was a comment on the in-game chat about I made a comment about Lada, and somebody had said about the Russian mafia, and I thought I've disturbed enough of the Russian mafia in the YouTube chat with Igor Ogorodnikov's fan base.
Well, I might have thrown a bit of. Might have thrown myself to the wolves a bit earlier on with the Nick Baltzar fan club. But David, good to see you out on there on circuit, mate, and good luck for the Porsches. And obviously, we'll see you back for Super Saturday.
Yeah, thanks as always for an awesome job tonight, guys, and take care.
Well, thank you. Thanks, David, and we'll see you around. Probably more in the commentary booth, but we won't talk about talents and where they belong. We'll leave them to it. One final interview before we wrap things up. Let's take a listen to Whitlock, who had a bit of a time penalty later on in the race. That didn't discourage you from battling and getting us some good broadcast time as well. Your park experience, how was it?
It was my first time in the America wagon at Oulton, but it was still good fun. Ultimately, even though my race could have been cleaner, I mean, I just do these races for fun anyways, and the battle at the end was fun. Had a little contact, but these GT4s, other than the spins from it, the GT4s take damage no problem, so I still had a good time.
How was your view on that incident into the chicane? Because we did catch that on broadcast. How do you view that one?
Closer to the end, I've got the replay pulled up right now. He just broke too late and had to cut the second apex. It's whatever, because I made a mistake on lap 8, so a karma, I guess.
It was good at least to see some battling later in the race. So at least thank you for showing us some. Oulton Park, where does this rate now on your list of favourite British circuits after today's race?
It's a good one. I think it's definitely much more enjoyable in the GT4s than the GT3s. Just very bumpy. It's pretty tight. You can make some moves, but you've got to definitely plan them out, sit behind a guy for a while and watch him. But I'd say second. It's only behind Donington for me.
Oh, nice. Good choice, Donington. That is a good shout. You are now far up my list of people I like, so that's good. Rising up.
I'll be here for Super Saturday.
And we will await to see you there, because it'll be a fantastic one. So thank you, Ryan Whitlock, and we'll see you around.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing to head to now is, Alex, your final thoughts of our GT4 race here at Oulton Park.
Well, domination supreme from Niels van der Kekkel, Andre Felix on the comeback trail, Marcel Fusi getting a top 3 with the radioactive Camaro of Ivan Shermatinsky rounding up the second place in it all. We saw some great battles. We saw some interesting incidents, let's say here. And yeah, it's just only whetted our appetite for what's to come over the next couple of weeks. Super Saturday, Donington Park this coming Saturday, British Classics at Donington next Thursday, the 12-hour Next Gen Silverstone Brain Tumour charity race, Sprint Cup Season 3, Best of British, Sim Cup World Cup with VCO. There is just so much to come, and with a $20,000 prize fund. A big thank you. We can only say a big thank you to Coach Dave Academy, and also Thrustmaster for their welcome support as always. And if you do want to get your setups, you can also go to Coach Dave Academy and actually get trained by real life professional drivers such as the legend himself, Dave Perel, Jordan Pepper and Kelvin van der Linde, amongst other people. Also ACC setups, track maps, and just to help get your game that little bit better here on Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone for joining us over today's action. It has been fantastic, and I'm sure we are going to see much more on Saturday. Plenty of drivers, plenty of races as well. We hope to see you there, and of course with all of the SimGrid content coming up. Don't forget to follow us on all sort of social media, and of course subscribe to the YouTube for the next content coming up, and there will be plenty of it. Hashtag We Love Michael Hamlet popped up a few times. Might as well throw that one out there. there. And of course, why not one for Mike Yao as well? Until Saturday, though, thank you and bye-bye.